Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over your third winter forecast for the year of 2020-21. I'm very excited to present this to you guys. We're going to be going over your temperature anomaly forecast, your precipitation anomaly forecast, and then your overall forecast at the end of the video. And you'll also get to look at my long-term forecast schedule, so you can definitely plan ahead so that you can see when I am planning on forecasting, potentially when I'm planning on uploading my monthly forecast, my seasonal forecast, and all of that. I'll put that in the middle part of the video so you guys can skip ahead to that if you would like, but definitely make sure you are watching the entire video so you don't miss anything. I'm going to be, again, moving through your temperature anomaly forecast, precipitation anomaly forecast, and your overall forecast. So let's get right into it here. Let's start off with your temperature anomaly forecast. This is all going from December 1st to February 28th. That is meteorological winter. It goes from the first day of December to the last day of February, and that's usually what I like to use as your winter months. Now, we're looking at below average temperatures forecasted for much of the Northwest, the Northern Plains, much of the central United States, and also for parts of the Tennessee and Ohio valleys, and into parts of the Middle Atlantic and the Northeast, looking at least slightly below normal temperatures. This is where it's not going to be too noticeable. You'll have some warmer spells, but for the most part, I think it will be slightly below average by maybe a couple degrees for the most part. Now, in parts of the Northern Plains, also for parts of the Missouri River Valley, also into parts of the Great Lakes, and into the interior Northeast, we're looking at moderately below average temperatures, and this would be where it's going to be more noticeable than in that light blue shade, and this is where I really think the heart of the cold is going to be. And then if you're in this well below average region, in this kind of dark blue, almost a purple there, this is where I'm looking at well below average temperatures, and this is where I think you're going to get the worst of the cold over parts of the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin there, and a couple portions of a couple other states, smaller portions there, where we're looking at well below average temperatures. So this is really where the heart of the cold is going to be. Also, something I want to point out, if you guys have any questions about your winter forecast, I answer all your comments down below, so just make sure all your comments are appropriate, and I'll definitely answer them down below. So if you have any questions, again, I will be answering all your questions down below. Now, here would be your above average region, and this includes parts of the Southwest, the South Central, and pretty much the entire Gulf Coast and parts of the Southeast Coast, where I'm looking at slightly above average temperatures. This is where it's going to be slightly warmer than normal by a couple degrees, but it's not going to be overly warm. You will still have a couple of cold spells. But for parts of the Southwest, I'm looking at some much warmer than normal conditions, moderately above average temperatures for parts of the southern half of California, the southern half of Nevada, much of Arizona, and a little bit of Utah there. I'm looking at even more above average than in that yellow shade. So this is where it's going to be much more noticeable, and unfortunately you're not getting any relief from that warm and dry pattern that you guys are currently in. Now, here would be your precipitation forecast, and let's get into it with your below average precipitation. Over the southern tier of the United States, I'm looking at below average precipitation, and then here's your moderately below average precipitation, where I'm looking at even more below average precipitation than what is typical, and this includes much of the just the southern, maybe fifth of the United States there. And if you're wondering what my logic is behind that, it's mainly because in let's say an El Nino or a neutral winter year, you're seeing an active jet stream that's moving kind of like this, an active subtropical jet stream. Now, what happens in a La Nina pattern is that you get rid of this active subtropical jet stream, and what you end up with is a jet stream that's kind of moving like this. You have multiple jet streams that are converging somewhat like this, and that's kind of the jet stream pattern that you see. So you're going to end up seeing a lot of precipitation up further to the north, but down further to the south, where you're not getting storms moving along the jet stream, you're not going to see too many storms. So that's really the big pattern change that's going to really influence my precipitation forecast, and that's the reason my precipitation forecast is the way it is. Now, here would be your above average precipitation. Again, much of the northern United States, because of that jet stream track, is going to be in that above average precipitation. And then here's your moderately above average precipitation for parts of the again, the northern United States, from parts of the Northwest, the Northern Plains, Great Lakes, and also for parts of the interior Northeast. That's where I'm expecting moderately above average precipitation. Now, here would be my long range forecast schedule from now till March 2020. 2021, and I forecasted it all out, or actually I planned it all out here. So you guys can definitely, if you want to, you can take a screenshot of this, just take a mental note, or you could just come back to this video whenever you're curious about it. But this is from now all the way until March 2021, when I'm going to be making all my long-range forecasts. So if you are curious, definitely stick around, subscribe, so you know when those are coming. And all these are subject to change. So for example, let's just take a date for the day I'm going to make my January forecast, December 31st. Let's say we have a big snowstorm or something like that I have more urgent needs to cover. I'll definitely prioritize that over the January forecast. Maybe I'll push the January forecast a little bit earlier, before the snowstorm, or something like that. So I'll definitely try to accommodate these, but these are definitely subject to change. This is just if everything pans out perfectly when I would make these. So definitely, again, take a screenshot of this, and in my daily videos, I'll definitely update you if there's any changes in this forecast, or actually this forecast schedule. So here is your overall forecast, and let's get right into it here. Let's start off with the Northwest. I'm looking at cool and wet conditions for parts of Washington, Oregon, and Idaho, where I am expecting, again, that colder than normal temperatures, and also those wetter than normal conditions moving throughout that region. Potentially a couple of snow events if both of those combine at the same time. So definitely that is something to pay attention to. In La Nina winters, you guys definitely see more snow than what is typical. So that's definitely something to be on high alert for. So here's your warmer than normal condition region, and this is for parts of the Southwest, where I'm expecting generally warmer than normal conditions, maybe some drier than normal conditions mixed in there, but the primary threat is going to be warm conditions. Now, somebody mentioned in my fall forecast, I believe, where I put hot and dry, I believe, for parts of the four corners, they said, well, I don't think it's going to be hot and dry in fall, or it might have actually been my winter forecast. I'm not quite sure. That is relative to the time of year. So hot in the Southwest for this region, in parts of the summertime, that would maybe be 100, 110, maybe 120 degrees Fahrenheit, but maybe hot in the winters, maybe 70, 80 degrees. So it's all relative to the time of year. So that's what I was trying to kind of mention there. So in the Southwest, and more specifically parts of California, Nevada, and Arizona, I am expecting warm and dry conditions. This is where I'm expecting drier than normal conditions to really couple with those warmer than normal conditions, and it's really just going to be very pleasant there. It's really going to be a very inactive pattern with some just generally warmer than normal conditions. So it should be just generally pleasant weather throughout those regions. Now, here would be over the Rockies, where I'm expecting more mountain snow, especially for the northern Rockies, maybe the central and southern Rockies getting into a bit of less or near average snowfall totals, just because of the inactive southern jet stream. So that is definitely something to point out if you like to go skiing throughout those regions. I do think over especially the northern Rockies is where you want to go. That's where I think you're going to see more mountain snow than what is typical, although all of these regions will get snowfall. They're high up in elevation, so it's not going to be a surprise. They're still going to see snowfall. Now, over parts of Oklahoma, Texas, and New Mexico, I'm expecting average conditions, nothing too notable to point out here. Now, in this yellow region, I'm expecting flip-flop conditions, moving from cold to warm, from dry to wet, so just all over the place generally. And this is kind of the transition zone over parts of New Mexico and Colorado, eastward to Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee there. Now, for parts of the northern plains, and just east of the Rockies, all the way to about the Great Lakes. This is where I'm looking at generally cold conditions. It's not going to be the heart of the cold, but you will still generally be fairly cold, and maybe a couple of snow events mixed in there. Now, also for parts of the Dakotas, Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin, and all of Minnesota for the most part, I am looking at some Arctic blasts that could potentially come in over those regions. And definitely, I think the Arctic blasts are going to be centered throughout these regions, where you're going to see the most below average temperatures. Now, also, I'm looking at some active lakes over parts of the Great Lakes, and I'm thinking this is going to be even more active than what is typical. You have a northern and a southern jet stream, or a subtropical jet stream is what they normally call it. So the northern jet stream is going to be going somewhat over the southern Great Lakes, and kind of transitioning somewhere through there. So that's going to allow your winds to be facing or going from west to east, and that'll bring some very, very strong winds over the course of the winter time, just blowing across the lakes, and that could generate some lake effect. And I think that'll be the primary source of your lake effect snow. Also, if you have some if you have some big snowstorms, those can also generate some lake effect within the snowstorm. So definitely something that you have to pay attention to. But you guys are definitely used to snow if you live within the Great Lakes. Now, here in the Ohio Valley and also for the Tennessee Valley, I'm looking at some cold and snowy conditions for these regions. This is usually where in a La Nina, most of these regions see their coldest and snowiest winters on average. So that's definitely something to pay attention to. These regions, I think you're going to see the heart of the cold and the snow. Now, for parts of the interior northeast, I'm looking at some snowy conditions for the most part, anywhere from West Virginia and Northern Virginia northward into parts of Pennsylvania, upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. This is where I'm looking at snowy conditions. It will be cold, but that's not going to be too brutal in terms of how cold the cold air will be. I think it'll be definitely bearable, but I do think the biggest threat is going to be the snow. You are going to see a lot of storms that are just going to parallel the East Coast, maybe not being offshore, but just paralleling it. And I think parts of the interior northeast could definitely see quite a bit of snowfall this winter. And then here over the East Coast, and especially from parts of Maine down to Delaware and into Maryland, that's where I'm looking at potential blizzards or at least some coastal storms that move off from the plains and kind of move straight eastward and then maybe turn up the coast. Definitely, if we have a fluctuation in the jet stream and it moves further south and east, you could definitely see even just one big winter storm that moves through here will definitely put your snowfall totals above average or at least near average for the winter. So definitely, I do think coastal storms are a threat, even though they're not as big of a threat in a La Nina year. They're definitely still something that you have to pay attention to. Over parts of the southeast, I am expecting an icy mess generally, and that would kind of be where you're looking at most of your systems kind of transitioning from rain to snow. So your wintry mix, some people like to call your icy precipitation, sleet, all of that. That's where you're gonna find it for the most part from North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, westward into parts of the Tennessee Valley. That's where I'm looking at the core of the icy mess. Now, also I'm looking at some drier than normal conditions for parts of the Gulf Coast and the areas bordering the Gulf Coast. That's where I'm looking at, again, drier than normal conditions. Also, it's going to be a little bit warmer than normal, but the main threat is going to be, or the main thing to point out is going to be those drier than normal conditions. Now, again, if you have any questions on your forecast, I do answer all of your comments and questions, so definitely leave them down below. Definitely leave a like if you did enjoy this video, subscribe and turn on notifications if you like the type of content that you're seeing, and I'll definitely continue with my daily uploads. Now, that is going to wrap it up for today's video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.